Hey everybody, it's Tom, WA2IVD. It's a little bit of a damp and rainy day here today, and this video was originally going to be about how my Wolf River Coil performs in the rain. Because recently I had some issues. It was raining and my SWR was jumping all over the place and it wasn't performing well at all. And as I went to check into it a little more, I discovered this. This is the wire that allows you to adjust the inductance of the antenna and tune it. And it doesn't work very well if the wire is not actually connected in here. And I'll show you a close-up of this, but this is pretty corroded on the end, and I've corroded enough that it's completely broken out of the connector. So what this video is going to be about today is maintaining your mobile and outdoor, well, I guess most antennas are outdoor antennas, but maintaining any antennas that have tuning components that are exposed to the weather. Let's go take a look. All right, here's the coil. I've already taken the main whip off the top just so I could work on it on the bench a little easier. And we're going to need to remove these nuts and bolts to get the ring terminal off here. And this is actually pretty corroded. I will show you a shot of that here as you're watching under the microscope. But this has been on my vehicle for at least 5 years. I want to say maybe 6 or 7. So it's been exposed to a lot. One other thing, while I have it right here, this is a quick disconnect mount. That actually is a little nasty and needs to be cleaned off too. But this just bolts onto a 3/8 24, and then there's a spring-loaded peg that this thing goes down on. It's kind of like a BNC connector almost, like a giant-sized one. And this makes it really convenient for taking the antenna off to get into parking structures or whatever. I don't have to get a set of wrenches out anymore. I can just push this down and twist it and pop it right off. So very handy thing. I found this at a ham fest. You can, I'm sure you can find them online as well. So let's get these things removed. I think I need a 9/16 wrench for this. I do. So that is pretty tight. Lefty loosey. I should be going the right way to get this off. Yeah, it's getting loose. Guess maybe I've got some corrosion on the bolt as well. Maybe I need to, oh, I know why, because this is threaded onto a bolt. I need to take this quick release mount off, and that is not a 9/16, so I will be back as soon as I get another wrench. All right, now we have the proper size wrench for this, and it is very difficult to loosen a nut when you try to tighten it into another nut. So that's the quick release mount. Very handy. And now we should be able to get this off much more easily. That is still actually a little bit snug, and I'll show you the threads here in just a minute. Yeah, that is not very loose at all. And this is why I like these ratchet type wrenches. That was a Christmas present from my family. And there's nothing tight holding this on, but this is just really tight because if you look at the 3/8 24 bolt that's sticking out of the bottom of this, It's just got a lot of nasty junk on it, and I will again show you a close-up of that in just a minute here. All right, we're going to need a new ring terminal, and I think I'm going to just completely remove this wire altogether, and I am not only going to put new ring terminals, I'm going to just get a new piece of wire. This looks like it's 12 gauge wire, and I'm pretty sure I've got some stranded 12 gauge wire. So let's have a quick look at this. We are going to put this under the microscope. So there's some corrosion on the bolt here too. I don't think that's rust from the bolt itself. I think this is actually corrosion, and I'm not sure you can tell, it's kind of greenish. It doesn't really show up as well on the camera. I think some of that might actually be like mold or algae or something. Again, probably just from moisture getting in there and staying in there. So we'll wire brush that all off and clean that off before we put it together. And then I mentioned at the beginning of the video that, let me get this set up first. I mentioned at the beginning of the video that I was going to make this about performance in the rain. And you probably can't see this on the main camera here, but there's a little black spot here, and actually there's another little black spot down here, and I thought, this looks like it might have arced. And I thought maybe it might have arced like when I was using it in the rain and it got wet, and during transmit it kind of arced across. Well, if we look at it a little bit closer under the microscope, let me get it a lot closer here for you. And then we'll refocus that. I don't think this is arcing at all. Even close up here, it kind of looks like arcing. But I'll show you on another one that I looked at. Hang on, let me find myself a pair of tweezers here. And I think this is, I believe as they say in Yiddish, I think this is schmutz from a bug. So this is probably when a bug hit this. And although that is clearly not an arc spot, there's one that looks very much like some sort of a wing from some kind of an insect driving down the road. And although it probably didn't do like a burning arcing, I bet you when it was rainy out, here's one that, I don't know, this actually looks like hair. I'm not sure what that's from. Well, maybe it was a hairy bug. But all of this stuff in between the coils here, even though they are stainless steel wires, and stainless doesn't corrode, or, well, it doesn't corrode easily. Stainless steel actually still can corrode when exposed to certain kinds of acids or things. So, but it still can get dirt in between it or dirt on it that can affect your tuning. I think what I'm going to get is a good stiff brush and brush all these coils out. Let me move this out of the way. And I'm going to brush all the coils out, brush all of this dirt and junk out from in between here. But the bottom line here is, all of this stuff, whenever you have any kind of an external tuning device, whether it's a coil, most of the time it's going to be a coil, but there are also capacitors sometimes on antennas that are external, and you're not going to get dirt and corrosion in between things on a capacitor, but where it's connected, those wires could corrode, just like that piece of wire that I just showed you. So when you have an outside antenna, you've got to maintain it, and you've got to keep it cleaned and make sure that corrosion and everything is taken care of. So let's get this cleaned up and we'll see what it looks like. All right, we're back. And I wire brushed off in between all of these and got rid of all of the little marks, bug marks, or any other kind of dirt marks that had gotten entrapped in here. I also took a Scotch-Brite pad and just went over the whole thing, and you probably can't really tell the difference on camera, but there was a film on some of these coils, not on some of them, on all of them. It was more pronounced at the top than at the bottom for reasons I have no idea why. But there was a little bit of a film, and I used a Scotch-Brite pad to get that all off. So this is nice and clean now, and I took a wire brush to these threads, which, let me give you a little better view of that. Now you can see that those are all cleaned up and nice and bright and shiny. And I also did the same thing to the stainless steel nut so that that's all bright and shiny now. And hopefully everything will be nice and clean and conduct well. So let's get this all put back together. Okay, I have a new piece of wire here, and this is the ring terminal that was on there. And I have these, the same style. But what I am going to replace this with is this ring terminal, which is still a 12-10 gauge ring terminal, but this has a piece of heat shrink tubing on it. It's actually pre-shrunk at the one end, and I am going to put this on there in the hopes that it will protect this a little bit from the weather and keep it from corroding. We'll get the wire in there. And I just realized I don't have crimp tools with me, so I need to go get that. All right, we will get that crimped in there. Always do a jerk test. Make sure it does not pull out. And we will get our heat gun. And I'm not sure how well this shows up on camera, but these types of connectors, you can find them at auto parts stores and you can find them online. They are, actually I'll try to make sure I have some links for these in the description. These are connectors that have heat shrink, but it's also got hot melt glue on the inside so that it actually forms a seal. So that should protect that from the elements really well. Now for the other side, unfortunately, I do not have one of those connectors handy that has the right size ring lug on it to fit the screw on the other side for the small end. So I am going to use a standard connector on this side, but I'll show you a technique that you can use to help keep this waterproofed as well. And if you're not aware, these ring terminals and spade terminals, all of these things are color coded, and yellow means 12 to 10 gauge wire, at least everywhere I've seen it. Blue is 14 to 16 gauge wire, and I'm not sure why they had on the original one. They had a blue one on this end, and they had the yellow one on this end, because the wire gauge didn't change from one end to the other. This is a 12 gauge piece of wire. I think it was probably because you can't, I don't know that I've seen these with that large of a ring that come in anything smaller than 12 and 10 gauge wire. And actually maybe that was 14 gauge, but I don't think so. But this will fit in this one, so I'm going to use the same one they used. Sorry, took that out of the camera view there, but I wanted to make sure I had it lined up correctly. So that's crimped, and the wire is sticking out here just like on the other one. So let me go grab something and I'll be right back. All right, and be right back through the magic of video means be right back after a trip to the hardware store, because my bottle of this was old and dried out. This is something called liquid tape or liquid electrical tape, and it's exactly what you would think it is. It's basically electrical tape in liquid form, and we can put some electrical tape. Whoop, that got pulled back. We're going to put some electrical tape on here, and I've slid a piece of heat shrink over this. So I'm going to put some of the liquid electrical tape that will help seal this from the elements, and then we're going to put the heat shrink over that and shrink it. And essentially, we're going to make our own homemade version of this type of connector. Assuming I can get the lid off the electrical tape. And it is, I don't know how well you can see that, it's pretty thick and gloppy. It's basically liquid vinyl with some sort of a solvent. You can't smell the solvent, but it is one of those that I think if I smelled a lot of this, I would be a very happy person for a little while. So I'm just going to dab it around the top and the bottom here. Probably going to end up making a little bit of a mess, but we'll try to keep the mess as little as possible. And then I'm going to push my heat shrink over this and out over the ring terminal. And then once again, we'll get our heat gun. Well, not quite as neat as the pre-made one, because I got a little bit of glop to clean up here on the end of the ring terminal, but that should be pretty weather tight. So now we have weather tight connectors on each side of this. So let's get this all put back together. We need to get our little adjuster collar here, and we will put the wire back on that and put the washer on. Some of you may have noticed there's just a tiny bit of heat shrink that was at the edge of the ring terminal. I'm not too worried about that because it's going to catch the washer here and make a good solid contact with the rest of the ring terminal. So that's good and tight, and hopefully watertight now. And we can slip that back on here. So that's ready to go. And then now we can take our newly replaced terminal on here and put that, not why that goes a lot faster, or sorry, a lot easier. And I'm going to do one more thing. Another handy product is something called dielectric grease. This is basically a pure silicone type grease, and it is used for protecting electrical contacts from moisture. So I'm going to put a little squirt of this on there. Probably going to need to wipe some of that off. And this will keep moisture from penetrating. It's not going to prevent the electrical contact, because when you tighten the nut down, it's going to displace that and squish it out of the way. But this is used in all kinds of electrical service stuff when you're doing like electrical panels outside, they'll use this to keep the electrical panel outside from having moisture get in between things or corrode things. So I'm not sure how long this will last in there, because eventually dirt and rain and wind is going to drive it out probably, but it should make it last a little bit longer. Let me find the right set of wrenches here, and we will get this tightened back up. That would not be the right wrench. That would be the right wrench. So, well, tighten that down really well. So now we have hopefully a much more waterproof and long-lasting connection there. We'll see. Although, I mean, this lasted 5 or 6 years outside in the weather, so I really can't complain too much. And this is really actually good construction. I mean, everything on here is stainless steel. This is all stainless hardware. This is all stainless steel. This is all stainless, so it's pretty well made. The only problem with stainless is stainless does not conduct very well. It's even worse than steel, way worse than aluminum and copper, but for outside use, it's kind of what you have to go with. And I am going to put just a little bit of, silicone grease inside of this too to help protect that. Let me find myself a paper towel here. And now we will put our quick disconnect on. The reason I mentioned that stainless is not that great a conductor is that on a mobile antenna, because you have a very short electrical antenna, you need to make the... Okay, that's good and tight. Sorry, distracted myself. When you have a mobile antenna, they are not very efficient RF-wise for radiation efficiency, and that's because they are physically very short. So the size of your antenna relative to wavelength has to do with its efficiency. The other thing that has to do with efficiency, though, is just simple DC resistance. So the better things conduct, that will help your efficiency. So you really want to use really good conductors. And again, as I said, it's kind of a compromise with outdoor stuff. You want something that's not going to corrode over time, but you really want the best conductor you can get. And that's why keeping all of these connection points clean, wire brushed and really good bright connections, the resistance that you have here and in here, and where this collar has the little stainless steel clip that rubs inside, keeping all of that cleaned and brushed off so you get the DC resistance as low as you can possibly get it will help. Every little bit helps with how much power you're actually getting out. All right, that's all I can do for putting this together in here. Let's go put the radiator on and connect it back up, and we'll see how it works. Well, we've got it all put back together, and as I said, let's go see how it performs. However, this video is already over 20 minutes long, so we're going to see how it performs in the next video. That should be out in just a couple of days, but we'll take a look then. As always, thanks for watching. I'm Tom, WA2IVD, and this is Ham Radio A to Z.